May 29, 1914. O my sweet Lord, those who are in thy head, that is, to speak more intellectually, those who have identified their consciousness with the absolute consciousness. Those who have become thy supreme knowledge, can no longer have any love for thee, since they are thyself. They enjoy that infinite bliss characteristic of all awareness of their supreme essence, but the devotion of the adorer who turns with ecstasy to that which is higher and above him can no longer exist. So, to him whose mission upon earth is to manifest thy love, thou teachest to have this pure and infinite love for all the manifested universe. The love which at first was made of adoration and admiration is transformed into a love all made of compassion and devotedness. Oh, the divine splendor of thy eternal unity! Oh, the infinite sweetness of thy beatitude! Oh, the sovereign majesty of thy knowledge! Thou art the inconceivable, the marvelous one. May 31, 1914. When the sun set in the indrawn contemplation of the calm twilight, all my being prostrated itself before thee, O Lord, in mute adoration and complete self-giving. Then I was the whole earth, and the whole earth prostrated itself before thee, imploring the benediction of thy illumination, the beatitude of thy love. Oh, the kneeling earth that supplicates to thee, then is ingathered in the silence of the night, waiting in both patience and anxiety for the illumination so ardently desired. If there is a sweetness in being thy divine love at work in the world, there is as great a sweetness in being the infinite aspiration which rises towards that infinite love. And to be able to change thus, to be successively, almost simultaneously, what receives and what gives, what transfigures and what is transfigured, to be identified with the painful darkness as with the all-powerful splendor, and, in this double identification, to discover the secret of thy sovereign unity, is this not a way of expressing, of accomplishing thy supreme will? O my sweet Master, my heart is a flaming chapel, and thou art seated there permanently like the sublimest of idols, so it is that thy form appears to me, clothed in magnificence, in the midst of the flames consuming my heart for thee, and at the same time, in my head, I see thee, know thee as the inconceivable, the unknowable, the formless, and in this double perception, this double knowledge, lies the plenitude of contentment. June 1, 1914. O victorious power of divine love, thou art the sovereign master of this universe, thou art its creator and its savior, thou hast permitted it to emerge from chaos, and now thou leadest it to its eternal goal. There is not a thing so humble but in it I see thee resplendent, not a being apparently so hostile to thy will but I feel thee live in it and act and radiate. O my sweet Master, essence of this love, I am thy heart, and the torrents of thy love pass through the entirety of my being and flow out to awaken thy love in all things, or rather to awaken all things to the consciousness of thy love which animates all. All those who do not recognize thee, all those who do not know thee, all those who try to turn away from thy sweet and divine law, I take into my arms of love, I cradle them in my heart of love and offer them to thy divine flames, so that penetrated by thy miraculous effluence, they may be converted in thy beatitude. O love, resplendent love, thou penetratest, thou transfigurest all. June 2, 1914. I in a silent contemplation, in a mute adoration, uniting myself with all this dark and painful substance, I hail thee, O Lord, as the divine Savior, I bless thy love as the Supreme Liberator, I offer thanks for its countless boons, and I give myself fully to thee so that thou mayst complete thy work of perfectioning. Then identifying myself with thy love, I am nothing but thy inexhaustible love, I penetrate all things, living within the heart of each atom I kindle therein the fire which purifies and transfigures, the fire that never burns out, the messenger flame of thy beatitudes, realizer of all perfections. Then this very love grows silently contemplative, and, turning to thee, O unknowable splendor, awaits in ecstasy thy new manifestation. June 3, 1914. Now that the whole being is more and more deeply plunged into material activity, into the physical realization which includes such a multitude of details to be thought of and regulated, I call to thee, O Lord, so that my consciousness, turned thus outwards, may constantly keep this communion with thee, which is the source of all peace, all strength, all bliss. O my sweet Master, accomplish all the work thyself through this individual being in its integrality. Or rather, do not let anything in this individual being forget at any moment that it is only an instrument, an illusion made real for thy intervention in it, and that thou alone art and actest. Oh, the benediction of thy immutable presence. June 4, 1914. O teacher, you who triumphest over all obstacles, thou shalt be in us the victory over all that would be an obstacle to the accomplishment of thy divine law. Thou wilt dispel the darkness of ignorance and the black smoke of egoistic ill will. Thou wilt dissolve all wrong suggestions and strengthen in us a pure and clear vision and the perspicacity which does not let itself be deceived by disruptive thoughts and conflicting wills for disorder. O my sweet Master, thy infinite love is the reality of our being. Who can struggle against its all-powerful action? It penetrates everything, it passes through every obstacle, whether it be the inertia of a heavy ignorance or the resistance of an uncomprehending ill will. O my sweet Master, through and by this love, thou shinest resplendent in all things, and this splendor of thine, ever increasing in its force, shall radiate its action over all the earth and become perceptible to every consciousness. Who can resist thy divine power? Thou art the sole and supreme reality. My being is ingathered in a mute adoration and EV. Everything disappears that is not thou. June 9, 1914. Lord, I am before thee like an offering aflame in the blazing fire of the divine union. And what is thus before thee is all the stones of this house and all it contains, all those who cross its threshold and all who see it, all who are connected with it in any way and from one to another the whole earth. From this center, this burning hearth which is now and shall be more and more permeated with thy light and with thy love, thy forces will radiate over all the earth, visibly and invisibly in the hearts of all and in their thoughts. Such is the assurance thou givest me in answer to my aspiration for thee. An immense wave of love descends over all things and penetrates all things. Peace, peace upon all the earth, victory, plenitude, wonder. O beloved children, unhappy and ignorant, O thou, rebellious and violent nature, open your hearts, calm your forces, for here comes the sweet omnipotence of love, here is the pure radiance of the light that penetrates you. This human hour, this earthly hour is beautiful over all other hours. Let each and all know it and rejoice in the plenitude that is given. O sorrowful hearts and careworn brows, foolish obscurity and ignorant ill will, let your anguish be calmed and effaced. Lo, the splendor of the new word arrives. Here am I. June 11, 1914. Every morning, O Lord, an innumerable salutation rises towards thee, a salutation from all the states of being and from all the multitude of their elements. And it is a daily consecration of all things to thee all, a call from ignorance and egoism to thy light and love. And thy answer comes constant and is integrally perceived. All is light, all is love, ignorance and egoism are but vain phantoms, they can be dissolved. And over all things spreads thy sovereign peace, thy fecund calmness. June 12, 1914. O my sweet Master, eternal splendor, I can only unite with thee in silence and peace, saying that thy will may be done in every detail as in the whole. Take possession of thy kingdom, master all that revolts against thee, heal the souls who do not know thee and the intellects that do not want to submit and be consecrated to thee. Awaken our slumbering energies, stimulate our courage, enlighten us, O Lord, show us the way. My heart is overflowing with a sovereign peace, my thought is calm and silent. At the core of all that is, of all that will be, of all that is not, is thy divine and unchanging smile. June 13, 1914. First of all, knowledge must be conquered, that is, one must learn to know thee, to be united with thee, and all means are good and may be used to attain this goal. But it would be a great mistake to believe that all is done when this goal is attained. All is done in principle, the victory is gained in theory, and those whose motive is only an egoistic aspiration for their own salvation may feel satisfied and live only in and for this communion, without caring at all for thy manifestation. But those whom thou hast appointed as thy representatives upon earth cannot rest content with the result so obtained. To know thee first and before all else, yes, but once thy knowledge is acquired there remains all the work of thy manifestation, and then there intervene the quality, force, complexity and perfection of this manifestation. Very often those who have known thee, dazzled and wrapped in ecstasy by this knowledge, have been content to see thee for themselves and express thee somehow or other in their outermost being. He who wants to be perfect in thy manifestation cannot be satisfied with that. He must manifest thee on all the planes, in all the states of being, and thus turn the knowledge he has acquired to the best account for the whole universe. Before the immensity of this program, the entire being exults and sings a hymn of gladness to thee. All nature in full conscious activity, all vibrant with thy sovereign forces, responds to their inspiration and wants to be illumined and transfigured by them. Thou art the master of the world, the sole reality. June 14, 1914. It is a veritable work of creation we have to do, to create activities, new modes of being so that this force, unknown to the earth till today, may manifest in its plenitude. To this travail I am consecrated, O Lord, for this is what thou wantest of me. But since thou hast appointed me for this work, thou must give me the means, that is, the knowledge necessary for its realization. We shall unite our efforts, the entire individual being will concentrate in a constant call for the knowledge of the mode of manifestation of this force, and thou, supreme center of the being, thou wilt emanate the force fully so that it may penetrate, transfigure and overcome all obstacles. It is a pact thou hast signed with the worlds of individual life. Thou hast made a promise, thou hast sent into these worlds those who can and that which can fulfill this promise. This now demands thy integral help so that what has been promised may be realized. In us must take place the union of the two wills and two currents, so that from their contact may spring forth the illuminating spark. And since this must be done, this will be done. June 15, 1914. Lie cradled in my heart and do not worry, what has to be done will be done. And it is just when thou doest it unknowingly that it is done best. I am in thy heart, Lord, and nothing can take me away from it. And it is from the unfathomable depths of this heart, in the smiling peace of its beatitude, that I look at all the outer forms of thy manifestation struggling and endeavoring to understand thee better, manifest thee better. If the hour has come, as thou lettest me know, for the new forms of thy realization, these forms will inevitably be born. Something in the being senses it but does not yet know, so it makes an effort to adapt itself, to prove equal to what thou askest of it. But what is conscious of thee and lives in thy force knows that this new form is only an infinitesimal progress in the infinite progression of thy manifestation, and looks at every form with the serenity of eternal plenitude. And in this serenity is the very omnipotence of realization. One must know how to soar in an immutable confidence. In the sure flight is perfect knowledge. June 16, 1914. Like a sun thy splendor descends upon the earth and thy rays will illumine the world. All those elements which are pure enough, plastic enough, sufficiently receptive to manifest the very splendor of the central fire nucleus are grouping themselves together. This grouping is not arbitrary and does not depend on the will or aspiration of one element or another. It depends on what it is independent of any individual decision. Thy splendor wants to radiate, what is capable of manifesting it manifests it, and these elements gather together to reconstitute as perfectly as possible in this world of division the divine center which has to be manifested. In the wonder of this contemplation all the cells of the being exult, and, seeing that which is, the integral substance passes into an ecstasy. How can this substance be now distinguished from thyself? It is thou completely, entirely, intensely in a perfect identification, thou. June 17, 1914. All that has been conceived and realized so far is mediocre, banal, insufficient beside what ought to be. The perfections of the past no longer have any force. Now, a new puissance is needed to transform the new powers and to subject them to thy divine will. Ask and this shall be, is thy constant answer. And now, O Lord, thou must create in this being a constant aspiration, uninterrupted, intense, passionate, in an immutable serenity. Silence, peace are there must also be the persistence of the intensity. Oh, thy heart sings a hallelujah of gladness as if what thou willest were on the way to its fulfillment. Destroy all these elements, that from their ashes may emerge new elements adapted to the new manifestation. Oh, the immensity of thy luminous peace! Oh, the omnipotence of thy sovereign love! And beyond all that we can imagine, the ineffable splendor of what we feel to be coming. Give us the thought, give us the word, give us the force. Enter the arena of the world, O newborn unknown. 1. June 18, 1914. Always the same will is at work. The force is there awaiting the possibility to manifest. We must discover the new form which will make the new manifestation possible. And thou, only thou, O Lord, can grant us this knowledge. It is for us with our whole being to make the effort, to ask, to aspire. But it is for thee to answer with the illumination, the knowledge and the power. Oh, the canticle of joy of thy victorious presence. June 19, 1914. Fill our hearts with the delight of thy love. Flood our minds with the splendor of thy light. Grant that we may effectuate thy victory. June 20, 1914. Teacher, you must accomplish the work of transfiguration, thou must teach us the path to be followed and thou must give us the power to follow it to the very end. O thou source of all love and all light, thou whom we cannot know in thyself but can manifest ever more completely and perfectly, thou whom we cannot conceive but can approach in profound silence, to complete thy incommensurable boons thou must come to our help until we have gained thy victory. Let that true love be born which soothes all suffering, establish that immutable peace wherein resides true power, give us the sovereign knowledge which dispels all darkness. From the infinite depths to this most external body, in its smallest elements, thou dost move and live and vibrate and set all in motion, and the whole being is now only a single block, infinitely multiple yet absolutely coherent. Animated by one tremendous vibration, thou. June 21, 1914. To be at once a passive and perfectly pure mirror, turned simultaneously without and within, to the results of the manifestation and the sources of this manifestation. So that the consequences may be placed before the guiding will, and to be also the realizing activity of that will, this, more or less, is what a human being ought to be to. Combine these two attitudes of passive receptivity and realizing activity is precisely the most difficult of all things. And that is what thou expectest of us, O Lord, and as thou dost expect it of us, there is no doubt that thou wilt give us the means of realizing it. For what must be will be, more splendidly yet than we can imagine. Oh, may thy love grow wider and wider in the manifestation, ever more sublime, ever deeper, ever vaster. June 22, 1914. What has to be will be, what has to be done will be done. What a calm assurance thou hast put into my being, O Lord. Who or what will manifest thee? Who can say it yet? In all things that strive towards a new, ever higher and completer expression, thou art present. But the center of the light is still not manifested, for the center of manifestation is not yet perfectly adapted. O Divine Master, that which has to be will be, and it will perhaps be very different from what all expect. But how is it possible to express certain silent secrets? The force is here, in it is the self. When and how will this force spring forth? When thou findest the instrument ready. Oh, the sweetness of thy calm assurance, the power of thy peace. June 23, 1914. Teacher, you art the sovereign power of transformation, why shouldst thou not act on all who are brought into contact with thee through our mediation? We lack faith in thy power. Always we think that men should in their conscious thought want this integral transformation for it to come about. We forget that it is thou who willest in them and that thou canst will in such a way that all their being is illumined by it. We doubt thy power, O Lord, and thus become bad intermediaries for it and veil the major part of its transforming force. Oh, give us the faith which we lack, give us the certitude of detail which is wanting in us. Deliver us from the ordinary way of thinking and judging. Grant that we may live in the consciousness of thy infinite love and see it at work at every moment, and that by our consciousness of it we may bring it into touch with the most material states of being. O Lord, deliver us from all ignorance, give us true faith. June 24, 1914. From the point of view of the manifestation, the work to be carried forward upon earth, a hierarchy is needed. But in this world which is still in disorder, can it be established unarbitrarily, that is, in perfect conformity with thy law? The witness being calm, indifferent, smiling, looks upon the play, the comedy which is unfolding itself, and awaits circumstances with serenity, knowing that they are nothing but a very imperfect translation of what should be. But the religious being turns to thee, O Lord, in a great aspiration of love, and implores thy help so that it may be the best that shall be realized, so that as many obstacles as possible may be overcome, all possible obscurities dispelled, all possible egoistic ill will vanquished. It is not the best possible in circumstances of the present disorder which must happen, for that always happens. It is these circumstances themselves which, through a greater effort than ever yet was made, must be transfigured, so that a best, new in quality, new in quantity, an altogether exceptional best may be manifested. So let it be. It is always wrong to want to evaluate the future or even to foresee it by the thought we have about it, for this thought is the present, it is in its very impersonality. The translation of present relations which are necessarily not the future relations between all the elements of the terrestrial problem. Deducing future circumstances from present ones is a mental activity of the nature of reasoning, even if the deduction takes place in the subconscious and is translated in the being into the form of intuition. But reasoning is a human faculty, that is, it is individual, its inspirations do not come from the infinite, the unlimited, the divine. It is only in the omniscience, only when one is at once what knows, what is to be known, and the power of knowing that one can become conscious of all relations, past, present and future. But in this state there is no longer a past, present or future, all is eternally. The order of manifestation of all these relations does not solely depend upon the supreme impulsion, the divine law, it depends also upon the resistance put up against this law by the most external world. From the combination of the two there comes forth the manifestation, and so far as it is at present possible for me to know, this combination is in a way undetermined. This is what makes the play, the unexpectedness of the play. June 25, 1914. What wisdom is there in wanting to be like this or like that? Why torment oneself thus? Art thou not the supreme worker? Is it not our duty to be thy docile instruments, and, when thou puttest the instrument aside for a time, will it complain that thou abandonest it because thou dost not make it work? Will it not be able to enjoy calm and repose after having enjoyed activity and struggle? One must be always vigilant, attentive to the least call, so as not to be asleep or inert when thou givest the signal for action, whether with the mind, the feelings or the body. But one must not confuse this constant state of expectation and devoted goodwill with an anxious and uneasy agitation, a fear of not being this or that and of displeasing thee, that is, of not conforming with what thou expectest of us. Thy heart is the supreme shelter, that wherein all care is soothed. Oh, leave it wide open, this heart, so that all those who are tormented may find there a sovereign refuge. Pierce this darkness, let light flash forth. Still this tumult, establish peace. Calm this violence, let love reign. Become the warrior, triumphant over obstacles, win the victory. June 26, 1914. Hail to thee, O Lord, Master of the world. Give us the power to do the work without being attached to it and to develop the capacities of individual manifestation, without living in the illusion of personality. Strengthen our vision of reality, make firm our perception of unity, deliver us from all ignorance, all darkness. We do not ask for the perfection of the instrument, knowing that in the world of relativities all perfection is relative. This instrument, fashioned for action in this world, must, in order to be able to act, belong to this world, but the consciousness that animates it should be identified with thine. It should be the universal and eternal consciousness animating the varied multitude of bodies. O Lord, grant that we may rise above the ordinary forms of manifestation so that thou mayst find the tools necessary for thy new manifestation. Do not let us lose sight of the goal. Grant that we may always be united with thy force, the force which the earth does not yet know and which thou hast given us the mission to reveal to it. In a deep meditation, all the states of manifestation consecrate themselves to thy manifestation. June 27, 1914. My being is happy with what thou givest it, what thou wantest from it, it will do, without weakness, without vain modesty and without futile ambition. What does it matter which place one occupies, what mission thou entrustest? Does not all lie in the fact of being entirely thine, as perfectly as one can be, without the least care of any kind? In this deep and steadfast confidence that thy work will be done and that thou hast created and appointed those who have to accomplish it, why strain one's energy uselessly and want what is already realized? Thou hast given me, O Lord, the sovereign peace of this confidence, thou hast granted me the incomparable boon of living in thy love, by thy love, of being thy love ever more and more, and in this love is complete and unchanging beatitude. I address but one prayer to thee, which I'll know to be granted in advance: always increase the number of elements, atoms or universes, capable of living integrally in and by thy love. Peace, peace upon all the earth. June 28, 1914. All nature hails thee, O Lord, and with arms lifted and hands outstretched she implores thee. Not that she doubts thy infinite generosity and thinks she must ask in order to have, but that is her way of bowing to thee and giving herself to thee, for is this giving anything else than being ready to receive? She delights in thus offering a prayer to thee, though she knows that this prayer is superfluous. But it is an ardent and happy adoration. And the feeling of devotion is thus satisfied without in any way hurting the intellectual consciousness which knows thee to be one with everything and present in everything. But all the veils must vanish and the light become complete in all hearts. O Lord, in spite of the work, in it, give us that perfect calm of the spirit which makes possible the divine identification, the integral knowledge. My love for thee, O Lord, is thyself, and yet my love bows down before thee in deep devotion. June 29, 1914. Give joy, peace and happiness to them all. If they suffer, illumine their suffering and make it a means of transfiguration. Grant them the beatitude of thy love and the peace of thy unity. May their hearts feel vibrating within them thy eternal presence. They are all in me, O Lord, I am in them all, and since instead of an I, there is now only thy sovereign love, they are all in thy love and will be transfigured by it. O Lord, my sweet Master, unknowable splendor, give them joy, peace, beatitude. June 30, 1914. Each activity in its own field accomplishing its particular mission, without disorder, without confusion, one enveloping the other, and all graded hierarchically around a single center, thy will. What is most lacking in all beings is clarity and order. Each element, each state of being, instead of fulfilling its function in harmony with all the others, wants to be the whole in itself, perfectly autonomous and independent. And there lies the ignorant error of all the universe, a global error repeated in millions and millions of forms. But under the pretext that these activities are separate and in disorder, to want to suppress them so as to let only thy single will subsist, which in its solitude would no longer have any reason to exist, would be an undertaking as absurd as it is unrealizable. It is easier, indeed, to suppress than to organize, but harmonious order is a realization far superior to suppression. And even if the final aim were a return to non-being, the return would seem possible to me only through a highest perfection of the being. O my sweet Master, grant to them that they may feel thy infinite tenderness and in the calm repose that it brings, be able to see and realize the supreme order of thy law. Let thy will which is all love manifest, let thy peace manifest. July 1, 1914. We hail thee, O Lord, with adoration and with joy, and give ourselves to thee in a gift constantly renewed, so that thy will may be accomplished upon earth and in all the places of this universe. When we turn towards thee the thought is mute but the heart exults, for thou shinest resplendent in all things, and the least grain of sand may be an occasion for worship. We bow down before thee, we unite with thee, O Lord, in a love that is limitless and full of an inexpressible beatitude. Oh, grant this sovereign joy to all. July 4, 1914. O sovereign force, O victorious power, purity, beauty, supreme love, grant that this being in its integrality, this body in all its totality may draw near to thee. Solemnly and offer to thee in a complete and humble surrender this means of manifestation abandoned perfectly to thy will, if not perfectly ready for this realization. With the calm and strong certitude that thou wilt one day accomplish the expected miracle and manifest in its fullness thy sublime splendor, we turn to thee in a profound rapture, and silently implore thee. Immensity, infinitude, wonder. Thou alone art and thou shinest resplendent in all things. The hour of thy fulfillment is near. All nature is ingathered in a solemn concentration. Thou answerest her ardent call. July 5, 1914. All that belongs to the outer, lower being which is still obscure, prostrates itself before thee in a mute and fervent adoration, calling with all its strength thy purifying action which will make it fit to manifest thee fully. And in this adoration is found perfect silence and perfect beatitude. Thou repliest mercifully to the call, what has to be done will be done. The necessary instruments will be prepared. Strive in the calm of certitude. July 6, 1914. What plenitude in the perception! The entire individual being, modest, humble, surrendered, adoring, calm and smiling, feeling one with all beings, unable to make any difference of value, in perfect solidarity with all things, is kneeling down before thee together with them all, and at the same time the formidable omnipotence of thy force which is here, ready for the manifestation, waiting, building the propitious hour, the favorable opportunity, the incomparable splendor of thy victorious sovereignty. The force is here. Rejoice, O you who are waiting and hoping, the new manifestation is sure, the new manifestation is at hand. The force is here. All nature exults and sings in gladness, all nature is at a festival, the force is here. Arise and live, arise and be illuminated, arise and battle for the transfiguration of all. The force is here. July 7, 1914. Peace, peace upon all the earth. Not the peace of an inconscient sleep or a self-satisfied inertia, not the peace of a self-forgetful ignorance and a dark, heavy indifference, but the peace of the omnipotent force, the peace of perfect communion, the peace of integral awakening, of the disappearance of all limitation and all darkness. Why torment oneself and suffer? Why this bitter struggle and painful revolt? Why this vain violence? Why this inconscient, heavy sleep? Awake without fear, appease your conflicts, silence your disputes, open your eyes and your hearts. The force is there, it is there, divinely pure, luminous, powerful, it is there as a boundless love, a sovereign power, an indisputable reality, an unmixed peace, an uninterrupted beatitude, the supreme benediction. It is self-existence, the endless bliss of infinite knowledge. And it is something more which cannot yet be told, but which is already at work in the higher worlds beyond thought as the power of sovereign transfiguration, and also in the inconscient depths of matter as the irresistible healer. Listen, listen, O thou who wouldst know. Look, thou who wouldst see, contemplate and live. The force is here. July 8, 1914. O divine force, supreme illuminator, hearken to our prayer, move not away from us, do not withdraw, help us to fight the good fight, make firm our strength for the struggle, give us the force to conquer. O my sweet Master, thou whom I adore without being able to know thee, thou who I am without being able to realize thee, my entire conscious individuality prostrates itself before thee and implores, in the name of the workers in their struggle, and of the earth in her agony, in the name of suffering humanity and of striving nature, O my sweet Master, O marvelous unknowable, O dispenser of all boons, thou who makest light spring forth in the darkness and strength to arise out of weakness. Support our effort, guide our steps, lead us to victory. July 10, 1914. O teacher, you who eternally, immutably art, who consentest to thy becoming in this world that thou mayst bring into it a new illumination, a new impulsion, thou art. Here, manifest thyself more and more completely, always more perfectly, the instrument has given and gives itself to thee with a fervent adhesion, a total surrender. Thou mayst reduce it to dust or transform it into a sun, it will resist nothing that is thy will. In this surrender lies its true strength and its true beatitude. But why art thou so considerate with the animality of the body? Is it because it must be given time to adapt itself to the marvelous complexity, the powerful infinity of thy force? Is it thy will that makes itself gentle and patient, is unwilling to precipitate things, leaves to the elements leisure to adapt themselves? I mean, is it better thus or is it impossible otherwise? Is there here a particular incapacity which thou dost tolerate with magnanimity, or is this a general law which is an inevitable portion of all that has to be transformed? But it matters little what we think about it, since thus it is, the attitude alone is important. Should we fight, should we accept? And it is thou who dictatest the attitude, it is thy will that determines it at each moment. Why foresee and contrive when it is enough to observe and to give a full adhesion? The working in the constitution of the physical cells is perceptible, permeated with a considerable amount of force. They seem to expand and to become lighter. But the brain is still heavy and asleep. I unite myself to this body, O Divine Master, and cry to thee, do not spare me, act with thy sovereign omnipotence, for in me thou hast put the will to an entire transfiguration. July 11, 1914. The entire physical being would like to be dissolved and reconstituted in an adoration that would have no bounds. O Lord, thou who comest to touch matter as the messenger of the supreme power and supreme beatitude, thou createst the conception of what the total realization can be. And when the being believed it was definitively invested with thy sublime mandate, thou withdrawest, making it understand that it was only a promise, a token of what can be. Alas, what an imperfection in matter it is that we cannot hold thee. O Lord, use thy omnipotence, work the miracle of thy permanent presence. Why so much consideration? We must triumph or perish. Victory, victory, victory. We want the victory of transfiguration. July 12, 1914. In all the states of being, in all the modes of activity, in all things, in all the worlds, one can meet thee and unite with thee, for thou art everywhere and always present. He who has met thee in one activity of his being or in one world of the universe, says I have found him and seeks nothing more. He thinks he has reached the summit of human possibilities. What a mistake! In all the states, in all the modes, in all things, all worlds, all the elements we must discover thee and unite with thee, and if one element is left aside, however small it may be, the communion cannot be perfect, the realization cannot be accomplished. And that is why to have found thee is but a first step on an infinite ladder. O sweet Master, sovereign transfigurator, put an end to all negligence, all lazy indolence, gather together all our energies, make them into an indomitable, irresistible will. O light, love, ineffable force, all the atoms cry to thee so that thou mayst penetrate and transfigure them. Give to all the supreme delight of the communion. July 13, 1914. Patience, strength, courage, calm and indomitable energy. Let the mind learn to be silent, let it not be eager to profit immediately by the forces which come to us from thee for the integral manifestation. But why hast thou chosen for the expression of thy will the poorest element, the most mediocre, the most imperfect? July 15, 1914. What, O Lord? Just as thou wilt, just as thou wilt. This instrument is weak, mediocre. Thou hast taught it that all activities are possible to it, that nothing was radically strange to it in all human activities, but it is in intensity, in perfection only that the divine begins, and until now thou hast not granted to it any extraordinary intensity, any real perfection. Everything is in a state of promise, a promise not individual but collective, nothing is completely realized. Why, O Lord? Thou hast placed in my heart a peace so total that it seems to be almost indifference, and in an immensity of calm serenity it says, just as thou wilt, just as thou wilt. July 16, 1914. Salutation of my silent and humble adoration. I bow down before thy glory, for it dominates me with all its splendor. Oh, let me dissolve at thy feet, melt into thee. July 17, 1914. Earthly realizations easily take on a great importance in our eyes, for they are proportionate to our external being with this limited form which makes us men. But what is an earthly realization beside thee, before thee? However perfect, complete, divine it may be, it is nothing but an indiscernible moment in thy eternity, and the results obtained by it, however powerful and marvelous they may be, are nothing but an imperceptible atom in the infinite march to thee. This is what thy workers must never forget, otherwise they will become unfit to serve thee. O my sweet Master, what childishness to think oneself responsible for anything at all and want to individualize thy supreme and divine will. Is it not enough to unite with thy heart and live there permanently? Then thou takest all the responsibilities and thy will works without even our needing to know it. Only a realization independent of all outer circumstances, free from all attachment and all understanding, however high, is a true realization, a valuable realization. And the only such realization is to unite with thee integrally, closely, definitively. As for the care of thy transitory, momentary manifestation in a fugitive existence and in a transient world, it is thou who must be responsible for it and do what is necessary for it to exist, if thou thinkest it good. O my sweet Master, Sovereign Lord, thou hast taken away all my cares and left me only the beatitude, the supreme ecstasy of thy divine communion. July 18, 1914. TWO things remain unshakable despite all storm winds, even the most violent, the will that all may be happy with the true happiness, thine, and the ardent desire to unite perfectly and be identified with thee. All the rest is perhaps still the result of an effort and a pretension. This is spontaneous, unshakable, and just when it seems that the ground is giving way and everything breaking down, this appears luminous, pure and calm, piercing through the clouds, dispelling the shadows, emerging still greater and stronger from the ruins, carrying in itself thy infinite peace and beatitude. July 19, 1914. O Lord, thou art the omnipotent master of thy own manifestation, grant to these instruments that they may escape from frames too narrow, from limits too fixed and mediocre. All the riches of human possibility are needed to translate even one atom of thy infinite force. Open the doors that are closed, make the sealed fountains spring forth, that the floods of thy eloquence and thy beauty may overspread the world. Let there be amplitude and majesty, nobility and grace, charm and grandeur, variety and strength, for it is the will of the Lord to manifest. O my sweet Master, thou art the sovereign ruler of our destinies, thou art the omnipotent master of thy own manifestation. Thine is all this world, thine all these creatures and all these atoms. Transfigure them, illumine. July 21, 1914. There was no longer any body, no longer any sensation, only a column of light was there, rising from where the base of the body normally is to where usually is the head, to form there a disk of light like that of the moon. Then from there the column continued to rise very far above the head, opening out into an immense sun, dazzling and multicolored, whence a rain of golden light fell covering all the earth. Then slowly the column of light came down again, forming an oval of living light, awakening and setting into movement, each one in a special way, according to a particular vibratory mode, the centers above the head, in the head, the throat, the heart, in the middle of the stomach, at the base of the spine and still farther down. At the level of the knees, the ascending and descending currents joined and the circulation thus went on uninterruptedly, enveloping the whole being in an immense oval of living light. Then slowly the consciousness came down again, stage by stage, halting in each world, until the body consciousness returned. The recovery of the body consciousness was, if the memory is correct, the 9th stage. At that moment the body was still quite stiff and immobile. July 22, 1914. Teacher, you art all love, O Lord, and thy love shines resplendently in the depths of every thought and every heart. Accomplish thy work of transfiguration, illumine us. Open the still closed doors, widen the horizon, establish strength, unify our beings and make us participate in thy divine beatitude that we may be able to make all men share in it. Grant that we may conquer the last obstacles, inner and outer, overcome the final difficulties. An ardent and sincere prayer has never risen in vain to thee, always in thy munificence thou answerest every call and thy mercy is infinite. O Divine Master, let thy light fall into this chaos and bring forth from it a new world. Accomplish what is now in preparation and create a new humanity which may be the perfect expression of thy new and sublime law. Nothing will stop our impetus, nothing will tire our effort, and, resting upon thee all our hopes and all our activities, strong in our complete surrender to thy supreme will, we shall march on to the conquest of thy integral manifestation with the calm certitude of victory over all that would oppose it. Hail to thee, Master of the world, who triumphest over all darkness. July 23, 1914. Lord, thou art all-powerful, become the fighter, gain the victory. May thy love be the sovereign master of our hearts and thy knowledge never leave our thoughts. Do not abandon us to impotence and darkness, break every limit, shatter every chain, dispel every illusion. Our aspiration rises to thee in ardent prayer. July 25, 1914. 80 The rising of the sun I sang the praise of this world in which it is possible not only to desire thee but to know thee and even to become thee. And I was astonished that there should be some who so ardently aspire to leave this universe and enter another world of perfection. Thou hast placed such contentment in my heart that it has become impossible for me not to feel satisfied in all circumstances, inner or outer. And yet something in my being always aspires for more beauty, for more light, for more knowledge, for more love, in a word, for a more conscious, a more constant relation with thee. But this too depends upon thy will, and when it is thy will, thou shalt grant me the entire transfiguration. July 27, 1914. Humbly, quietly, my prayer rises to thee, O sweet Master, thou who acceptest without argument and without censure all that is offered to thee, thou who givest thyself and makest thyself known to all, without asking whether they are worthy of it or not, thou who findest nothing too weak, too small, too modest, too inadequate to manifest thee. Let me lay myself at thy feet, let me melt into thy heart and disappear in thee, let me be annihilated in thy beatitude, or rather let me be only thy servant, claiming nothing more. I aspire for nothing else. To be only thy servant is all I ask. July 31st, 1914. It seems to me that thou wouldst make me taste successively all the experiences which are ordinarily put at the summit of a yoga as its culmination and the proof of its perfect accomplishment. The experience is striking, intense, complete. It carries within it the knowledge of all its effects, all its consequences. It is conscious, willed, the result of methodical effort and not of unexpected chance, and yet it is always single of its kind, like milestones set along a route which are separated from each other by a long ribbon of road. And, moreover, these milestones which mark the infinite ascent are never alike. They are always new and seem to have no connection one with the other. Will a time come when thou wilt make this being capable of synthesizing all these countless experiences so as to draw from them a new realization, more complete and more beautiful than all achieved so far? I do not know. But thou hast taught me not to regret an exceptional state when it disappears any more than I desire it before it comes. I see in the disappearance no longer the sign of an instability in the progress made, but the evidence of a march which goes deliberately forward without stopping any longer than is indispensable for the various stages of the road. Each time thou teachest me yet a little better that the means of manifestation is limited only because we think it so, and that it can effectively partake of thy infinitude. Each time something of thy immensity makes itself kin to the instrument which is its dwelling place, flinging wide the doors which open on boundless horizons. August 2nd, 1914. What are these powerful gods whose hour of manifestation upon earth has come, if not the varied and perfected modes of thy infinite activity, O thou Master of all things, being and non-being and what is beyond, marvelous unknowable One, our Sovereign Lord? What are these manifold brilliant intellectual activities, these countless sunbeams illumining, conceiving and fashioning all forms, if not one of the modes of being of thy infinite will, one of the means of thy manifestation, O thou Master of our destinies, sole unthinkable reality, Sovereign Lord of all that is and all that is not yet? And all these mental powers, all these vital energies, and all these material elements, what are they if not thyself in thy outermost form, thy ultimate modes of expression, of realization, O thou whom we adore devotedly and who escapest us on every side even while penetrating, animating and guiding us, thou whom we cannot understand or define or name, thou whom we cannot seize or embrace or conceive, and who art yet realized in our smallest acts. And all this enormous universe is only an atom of thy eternal will. In the immensity of thy effective presence all things blossom. August 3rd, 1914. All the being, this morning, is mute adoration and the immensity of thy love fills its soul. The preparation and the work and the preparation alternate and interpenetrate to such an extent that sometimes it becomes difficult to distinguish them, and their combination constitutes thy divine life upon earth. What one must be, what one must do, the perfecting of thy instrument and its utilization go together. Sometimes thou wantest it to enrich itself and grow, to open all its doors on infinite horizons, to unite with the God it can manifest, to develop its power of conscious relation with the various worlds, and sometimes thou wantest that, losing so to speak all consciousness of itself, it may be nothing but thy force in action. And in the two is found the supreme law of communion with thy will. All the being, this morning, is mute adoration and the immensity of thy love fills its soul. August 4th, 1914. O Lord, O Eternal Master! Men, driven by the conflict of forces, are performing a sublime sacrifice. They are offering their lives in a blood-stained holocaust. O Lord, O Eternal Master, grant that all this may not be in vain. Grant that the inexhaustible torrents of thy divine force may spread over the earth and penetrate its troubled atmosphere, the struggling energies, the violent chaos of battling elements. Grant that the pure light of thy knowledge and the inexhaustible love of thy benediction may fill men's hearts, penetrate their souls, illumine their consciousness and, out of this obscurity, out of this somber, terrible and potent darkness, bring forth the splendor of thy majestic presence. My being is laid before thee in a holocaust conscious and complete, that their unconscious holocaust may by it be made effective. Accept the offering, answer our call, come. August 5, 1914. O Eternal Master, Thou art in all things like a vivifying breath, a sweet peace, a sun of luminous love piercing the clouds of darkness. Grant that we may be Thy vivifying breath, Thy sweet peace, Thy luminous love upon the earth amidst our ignorant and sorrowful human brothers. O Divine Master, accept the offering of all myself as a holocaust that Thy work may be accomplished and the time may not pass by in vain. In a serene ecstasy I give myself to Thee, that Thou mayst once again become the master of what is Thine, the possessor of Thyself in each one of the countless atoms and in the consciousness that is synthetic and one. O Divine Master, accept this offering, this complete holocaust that the time may not have come in vain. My whole being is transformed into a living flame, a flame of sacrifice of pure love. Become once again the King of Thy kingdom, deliver the earth from the heavy weight which is crushing it, the weight of its own inert, ignorant, and obscure ill will. O my sweet Master, my being is ablaze with the ardent flame of the sacrifice of love, accept my offering that the obstacle may be overcome. August 6, 1914. What then are the defects, the blemishes that prevent the offering from being complete enough for Thee to welcome it, the holocaust from seeming to Thee worthy to be received? There are still some limitations in this being, but wilt Thou not shatter them? O Lord, we know that it is an hour of great gravity for the earth, those who can be Thy intermediaries to it to make a greater harmony arise from the conflict and from its dark ugliness a diviner beauty, must be ready for the work. O Lord, O Eternal Master, we entreat Thee, answer our endeavor, enlighten it, show us the way, give us the strength to break down all inner resistance and overcome every obstacle. O my sweet Master, I prostrate myself at Thy feet, my entire being cries to Thee in an ardent supplication. Deliver me from the incapacity of the personal being. August 8, 1914. My pen is silent. So absorbing is this material world. Why must we let it take so much place in our consciousness? Is it an incapacity in us? Is it Thy will? O my sweet Master, I would live only in Thee, but Thou hast told me that I must live for Thee, and in thus living for Thee our consciousness turns towards external fields and we seem to go far from Thee. I know this is not altogether true, but there is a resistance still in the being which refuses to yield, there is a door which remains closed, a certain door of luminous intelligence which no effort has been able till now to open, and this terribly impoverishes Thy manifestation. When wilt Thou decide that the hour has come for all this resistance to disappear? Monstrous forces have swooped down upon the earth like a hurricane, forces dark and violent and powerful and blind. Give us strength, O Lord, to illumine them. Thy splendor must break out everywhere in them and transfigure their action, their devastating passage must leave behind it a divine sowing. O my Divine Master, do not reject my offering. Make me worthy to be wholly Thine in the plenitude of the giving and the fullness of the manifestation. August 9, 1914. Lord, we are before Thee that Thy will may be done. Remove from our thought all obstacles, doubts, all weaknesses, limitations, all that veils our knowledge and obscures our understanding. I am athirst for Thy consciousness, I am athirst for an integral union with Thee, not in inaction and a flight from physical activity but in a complete, absolute, perfect accomplishment of Thy will. The splendor of Thy supreme light must spring forth from all the darkness that has swept down upon the earth. August 11, 1914. O my sweet Master, enter into all these confused thoughts, all these anguished hearts, kindle there the fire of Thy divine presence. The shadow of the earth has fallen back upon it, it has been completely shaken by it, but this shadow was hiding Thy immutable sun, and now that it has crashed down upon this poor world, rocking its very foundations and transforming it into a formidable chaos, wilt Thou not once again move upon the chaos and speak Thy will, let there be light? O Thou marvelous unknown One, Thou who hast not yet manifested Thyself, thou who awaitest the propitious hour and hast sent us upon earth to prepare thy ways, all the elements of this being cry to thee, may thy will be done and give themselves to thee in a supreme, unconquerable urge. Envelop this sorrowful earth with the strong arms of thy mercy, permeate it with the beneficent outpourings of thy infinite love. I am the powerful arms of thy mercy. I am the vast bosom of thy boundless love. My arms have enfolded the sorrowful earth and press it tenderly to my generous heart, and slowly a kiss of supreme benediction is laid upon this struggling atom, the kiss of the mother which soothes and heals. August 13, 1914. Teachee being stands before thee, with arms lifted, palms open, in an ardent aspiration. O sweet Master, it is a love more wonderful and formidable than any manifested so far which the earth needs, it is for this love that it yearns. Who will be capable and worthy of being its intermediary to it? Who? That matters little, but it must be done. O Lord, answer my call, accept the offering of my being despite its little worth and its limitations. Come. More, always more, may the regenerating streams roll over the earth in beneficent waves. Transfigure and illumine. Work this supreme miracle so long awaited, and break all ignorant egoisms, awaken thy sublime flame in every heart. Do not let us become benumbed in a tranquil serenity. We ought not to take any rest before thy new and sovereign love is manifested. Listen to our prayer, answer our call, come. August 16, 1914. For 3 days I waited in an ardent prayer, hoping to see the new things, and all the obstacles surged up to veil, retard, deform thy manifestation. And now we do not seem any nearer the goal than before. O my sweet Master, why hast thou told me to leave the blessed place in thy heart and return to earth to attempt a realization which everything seems to prove impossible? What dost thou expect of me that thou hast torn me away from my divine and wonderful contemplation and plunged me again into this dark, struggling universe? When thy force descends towards the earth in order to manifest, each one of the great Asuric beings who have resolved to be thy servitors but preserved their nature's characteristic of domination and self-will, wants to pull it down for itself alone and distribute it to others afterwards. It always thinks it should be the sole or at least the supreme intermediary, and that the contact of all others with thy power cannot and should not be made except through its mediation. This unfortunate meanness is more or less conscious, but it is always there, delaying things indefinitely. If even for the greatest it is impossible in the integral manifestation to escape these lamentable limitations, why, O Lord, impose upon me the Calvary of this constraint? If thou willest that it be thus, thou shouldst rend the last veil and thy splendor come in all its purity and transfigure the world. Accomplish this miracle or else let me withdraw into thee. August 17, 1914. All errors, all prejudices, all misunderstandings must vanish in this whirlwind of destruction that is carrying away the past. The light must become perfectly pure, free from all limitation, so that thou canst manifest thyself fully within it. Lord, thou hast the power and thou wilt realize this supreme miracle. Into this consciousness thou hast put the certitude of victory. August 18, 1914. Let me turn to thee in a profound and silent contemplation, let me place this integral being and its multiple activities at thy feet as an offering, let me stop all the play of these forces, unify all these consciousnesses, so that one alone may persist, the one which is able to hear thy command and understand it. Let me plunge again into thee as in a sovereignly beneficent sea, that which purifies from all ignorance. I feel as if I have gone down very deep into an unfathomable abyss of doubt and darkness, as if I am exiled from thy eternal splendor, but I know that in this descent is the possibility of a higher ascent which will enable me to span a vaster horizon and draw a little nearer to thy infinite heavens. Thy light is there, steady and guiding, shining without intermission in the depths of the abyss as in the luminous splendors, and a serene confidence, a calm indifference, a tranquil certitude dwell permanently in my consciousness. I I'm like a boat which has long enjoyed the delights of the port and, despite the dark storm-laden clouds which hide the sun, unfurls its sails to launch forth into the great unknown, towards shores unheard of, towards new lands. I am thine, Lord, without any restriction or preference. May thy will be done in all its rigorous plenitude. All my being adheres to it with a joyous acceptance and a calm serenity. I have no longer any idea about the future. It is thou who wilt awaken the new conception more closely answering thy law. In a most perfect surrender and a most entire trust one. Wait, thy voice showing me thy path. August 20th, 1914. To see the goal from a new angle which may usefully light up the others, we should constantly renew the experience of the inner discovery and return to the extreme limit of consciousness without at any time postulating beforehand what the end of our journey will be. But instinctively the mind remembers the impression that it received from one or from some of the former contacts of our consciousness with the ultimate center, and tells itself, that is what one finds at the end of the road. It does not realize that the that which is in its thought is only one of countless ways of translating the goal or even of travestying it, nor does it perceive that the intellectual conception should follow the experience and not precede it. To retrace the path in all innocence as though one had never before traveled it, is the true purity, the perfect sincerity, the sincerity that brings an uninterrupted progress, growth, and integral perfectioning. Despite myself, in the silence of all thought, that is, of all conscious formulas, something in my being, deeper than words, turns to thee, O ineffable Lord, in an ardent aspiration, giving thee in offering all its activities, all its elements, all its modes of being, and imploring for all these the supreme illumination. O thou, whom I cannot think, but whom with certitude I know. August 21st, 1914. O Lord, Lord, the whole earth is in an upheaval, it groans and suffers, it is in agony. All this suffering that has descended upon it must not be in vain. Grant that all this bloodshed may produce a swifter germination of the seeds of beauty and light and love which must blossom and cover the earth with their rich harvest. Out of the depths of this abysm of darkness the whole being of the earth cries to thee that thou mayst give it air and light. It is stifling, wilt thou not come to its aid? O Lord, what must we do to triumph? Hear us, for we must conquer at any price. Break down every resistance, appear. August 24th, 1914. Lord, it is in a heartfelt gratitude that I draw near to thee. Thou hast given me the first words of the knowledge I so longed for, and with this knowledge has come effectivity, the true power in each field of realization. It is only a beginning, it is not an accomplishment, but the road opens, visible and straight, there is nothing to do but to follow it, the veil is rent in answer to the humble but all-powerful effort of the dark days. Grant, O Lord, that the path may be thus lit up for all, and that after having seen clearly into ourselves there may not be any new difficulties for the knowledge to become conscious in others. Despite everything, a human being, no matter how great, is limited, at least for a long time, by the very fact that he is human and because, even when he is in contact with immensity, this immensity is translated in his outer consciousness from the angle of his own personality. It is very difficult for him not to have a perspective partially obliterated as it were by his own viewpoint. But these last obstacles must be overcome, definitively broken down, so that they may no longer be able to rise again. The road must be entirely free and the knowledge that has been glimpsed become firmly established. Thy grace is with us, Lord, and it never leaves us, even when appearances are dark. Night is sometimes necessary to prepare more perfect dawns. But perhaps this time thou hast placed us in the presence of the dawn that does not pass away. Receive the offerings of our ardent gratitude and our integral surrender. I knew that this notebook would end with the closing of one phase of my spiritual life. That is indeed what is happening. The light has come, the road has opened, with a grateful bow to the laborious past, we shall move swiftly forward on the new way opened wide by thee before us. On the threshold of this new field of a vaster and more conscious realization, we bow before thee, O Lord, in an integral surrender and adoration. We give ourselves to thee without reservation. Once again it is thou who livest in us, and thou alone. Thou hast once more become the king of thy kingdom, but a kingdom vaster and more perfect, a kingdom more worthy of thy rule. August 25, 1914. O Lord, let thy will be done, thy work be accomplished. Fortify our devotion, increase our surrender, give us light upon the path. We erect thee within us as our supreme master, that thou mayst become supreme master of all the earth. Our speech is still ignorant, enlighten it. Our aspiration is still imperfect, purify it. Our action is still powerless, make it effective. O Lord, the earth groans and suffers, chaos has made this world its abode. The darkness is so deep that thou alone canst dispel it. Come, manifest thyself, that thy work may be accomplished. August 26, 1914. O my sweet Master, O Lord of felicity, all these worlds of felicity interpenetrating and completing one another are an immensity difficult to perceive in their totality. Give us the knowledge of these laws, give us the power to awaken the earth to an understanding and perception of the aim so blindly pursued. In all things thou art the happiness without alloy, a blessed felicity, but the felicity is perfect only when it is integral, from the most external manifestations down into the most unfathomable depths. O Lord, thou hast placed me on a threshold of wonder, confirm me in this knowledge. Establish me in that center of consciousness whence all my activities will be an unmixed expression of thy law. In a potent and mute adoration, I wait. August 27, 1914. To be the divine love, love powerful, infinite, unfathomable, in every activity, in all the worlds of being. It is for this I cry to thee, O Lord. Let me be consumed with this love divine, love powerful, infinite, unfathomable, in every activity, in all the worlds of being. Transmute me into that burning brazier so that all the atmosphere of earth may be purified with its flame. Oh, to be thy love infinitely. August 28, 1914. O Lord, O eternal Master, my thought lies mute and powerless before thee, but my heart calls to thee, awaken all my being that it may be for thee, entirely, the needed instrument, the perfect servitor. Oh, to be infinitely thou, thou in all things, thou everywhere, thou always, the absolute silence, the absolute movement. To be nothing other than the one, all-containing, contained in all, free from every limitation and from all blindness. O supreme triumphant, triumph over every obstacle. August 29, 1914. What would be the use of man if he were not created to throw a bridge between that which is eternally but is unmanifested and that which is manifested, between all the transcendences and splendors of the divine life and all the dark and sorrowful ignorance of the material world? Man is the link between what must be and what is, he is the footbridge thrown across the abyss, he is the great cross-shaped X, the quaternary connecting link. His true domicile, the effective seat of his consciousness, should be in the intermediary world at the meeting point of the four arms of the cross, just where all the infinitude of the unthinkable comes to take a precise form so that it may be projected into the innumerable manifestation. That center is a place of supreme love, of perfect consciousness, of pure and total knowledge. There establish, O Lord, those who can, who must and truly want to serve thee, so that thy work may be accomplished, the bridge definitively established, and thy forces poured unwearyingly over the world. August 31, 1914. In this formidable disorder and terrible destruction can be seen a great working, a necessary toil preparing the earth for a new sowing which will rise in marvelous spikes of grain and give to the world the shining harvest of a new race. The vision is clear and precise, the plan of thy divine law so plainly traced that peace has come back and installed itself in the hearts of the workers. There are no more doubts and hesitations, no longer any anguish or impatience. There is only the grand straight line of the work eternally accomplishing itself in spite of all, against all, despite all contrary appearances and illusory detours. These physical personalities, moments unseizable in the infinite becoming, know that they will have made humanity take one farther step, infallibly and without care for the inevitable results, whatever be the apparent momentary consequences. They unite themselves with thee, O Master Eternal, they unite themselves with thee, O Mother Universal, and in this double identity with that which is beyond and that which is all the manifestation they taste the infinite joy of the perfect certitude. Peace, peace in all the world. War is an appearance, turmoil is an illusion. Peace is there, immutable peace. Mother, sweet Mother who I am, thou art at once the destroyer and the builder. The whole universe lives in thy breast with all its life innumerable, and thou livest in thy immensity in the least of its atoms. And the aspiration of thy infinitude turns towards that which is not manifested to cry to it for a manifestation ever more complete and more perfect. All is, in one time, in a triple and clairvoyant total. Consciousness, the individual, the universal, the infinite. September 1st, 1914. O Mother Divine, with what fervor, what ardent love I came to thee in thy deepest consciousness, in thy high status of sublime love and perfect felicity, and I nestled so close into thy arms and loved thee with so intense a love that I became altogether thyself. Then in the silence of our mute ecstasy a voice from yet profounder depths arose, and the voice said, turn towards those who have need of thy love. All the grades of consciousness appeared, all the successive worlds. Some were splendid and luminous, well-ordered and clear, their knowledge was resplendent, expression was harmonious and vast, will was potent and invincible. Then the worlds darkened in a multiplicity more and more chaotic, the energy became violent and the material world obscure and sorrowful. And when in our infinite love we perceived in its entirety the hideous suffering of the world of misery and ignorance, when we saw our children locked in a somber struggle, flung upon each other by energies that had deviated from their true aim, we willed ardently that the light of divine love should be made manifest, a transfiguring force at the center of these distracted elements. Then, that the will might be yet more powerful and effective, we turned towards thee, O unthinkable Supreme, and we implored thy aid. And from the unsounded depths of the unknown a reply came sublime and formidable, and we knew that the earth was saved. September 4th, 1914. Darkness has descended upon the earth, thick, violent, victorious. All is sadness, terror, destruction in the physical world, and the splendor of thy light of love seems darkened by a veil of mourning. O sweet Mother, I merge into thee in an immense love and an intense supplication to the Lord of all things that he may show us the way, that he may trace out for us the path of his work, so that we may tread it boldly. Time presses, the divine powers must come, O Lord, to the help of the agonized earth. O Mother, sweet Mother, thou dost clasp all thy children close to thy vast breast, and thy love enfolds them all alike. I have become the purifying fire of thy love. O Lord, silent unthinkable one, accept the holocaust of this brazier of love, that thy reign may come, thy light triumph over darkness and death. Manifest thy power. From day to day, from hour to hour we implore thee, O Lord, manifest thy power. September 5th, 1914. Face the danger. Thou saidst to me, why dost thou wish to turn away thy gaze or flee far away from action, flee from the battle, into the deep contemplation of truth? It is its integral manifestation which must be realized, its victory over all the obstacles of blind ignorance and dark hostility. Look the danger straight in the face and it will vanish before the power. O Lord, I understood the weakness of this most external nature which is always ready to surrender material things and escape, as a compensation, into a supreme intellectual and spiritual independence. But thou expectest action from us, and action does not allow such an attitude. It is not enough to triumph in the inner worlds, we must triumph right down to the most material worlds. We must not flee from the difficulty or obstacle, because we have the power to do so by taking refuge in the consciousness where there are no obstacles. We must look the danger straight in the face with faith in thy omnipotence, and thy omnipotence will triumph. Give me integrally the heart of the fighter, O Lord, and thy victory is sure. Conquer at any price should be the present motto. Not because one is attached to the work and its results, not because one needs such an action, not because one is incapable of escaping from all contingencies, but because thou hast commanded action from us. But because the hour of thy triumph upon earth has come. But because thou willest the integral victory. And in an infinite love for the world, let us fight. September 6, 1914. Higher, ever higher. Let us never be satisfied with what is achieved, let us not stop at any realization, let us march always onwards, ceaselessly, energetically, towards an ever completer manifestation, an ever higher and more total consciousness. Yesterday's victory must be only a stepping stone to the victory of tomorrow, and the power of the day gone by a weakness beside the effectivity to come. O Mother Divine, thy march is triumphal and uninterrupted. He who unites with thee in integral love journeys unceasingly towards ever vaster horizons, towards an ever completer realization, leaping from peak to peak in the splendor of thy light, to the conquest of the marvelous secrets of the unknown and their integral manifestation. O Divine Victor, all the earth sings thy praises, and all forces will obey thee. For the Lord has said, the hour has come. And all obstacles will be surmounted. September 9, 1914. The world is divided between two opposite forces struggling for supremacy, and both are equally against thy law, O Lord, for thou dost not want either more. Tal stagnation or blind destruction. It is in a constant, progressive and luminous transformation that thou expressest thyself, and it is this we must establish upon earth if we want to manifest thy will. At times our impatience would like to know immediately the means of this manifestation. But our impatience is futile and receives no answer. For the knowledge will come at the opportune moment, at the moment of action. Hence it is with the thought at peace and with the realizing will calm and strong that we await the sign thou wilt give us. September 10, 1914. Thy love is like a rising tide, invading the entire being and breaking upon all things. Lord, thy love will penetrate all hearts and kindle in them the divine flame, which never goes out, the divine beauty which does not fade, and, above every contrast and contradiction, it will establish in all that unchanging bliss which is the supreme good. Thy light is like a rising tide, invading the entire being and breaking upon all things. Lord, thy light will penetrate all thoughts and create in them that sovereign clarity which does not waver, the divine clear-sightedness which never errs, and, above every contrast and contradiction, it will establish in all the splendor of thy knowledge which is the supreme wisdom. Thy force is like a rising tide, invading the entire being and breaking upon all things. Lord, thy force will penetrate all life and create in it the effective strength which never fails, the divine power which is invincible, and, above every contrast and contradiction, it will establish in all thy mastering energy which is the supreme will. September 13, 1914. With fervor I hail thee, O Divine Mother, and in deep affection identify myself with thee. United with our Divine Mother I turn, O Lord, to thee, and bow to thee. In mute adoration and in an ardent aspiration identify myself with thee. Then all becomes a marvelous silence, being is absorbed in non-being, all is suspended, at rest, motionless. How shall one express the inexpressible? September 14, 1914. There is no longer an I, no longer an individuality, no longer any personal limits. There is only the immense universe, our sublime Mother, burning with an ardent fire of purification in honor of thee, O Lord, Divine Master, Sovereign Will, so that this will may meet with no farther obstacle in the way of its realization. A mighty canticle of fervent love and exultation arises to thee, O Lord, all the earth in an inexpressible ecstasy unites with thee. Let thy potent breath feed the brazier, that it may become ever vaster and more formidable, that all darkness and blind resistance may be absorbed, set ablaze, transfigured into light in the marvelous purifying flame. Oh, the peace-giving splendor of thy purification! September 16, 1914. Hearken to the voice that rises, hearken to the chant that is lifted up to hail thy divine dawn. Let the supreme law be fulfilled, whether it be existence eternal, universal, or reabsorption into non-being matters little. Must one choose between the two? I cannot. In my consciousness there is no longer any preference, only one will persists, thine, O ineffable. And all this universe is now only a chant, ever vaster and more harmonious, arising to salute thy divine dawn. September 17, 1914. No longer can any impulse to action come from outside or from any particular world. It is thou, Lord, who settest all things in motion from the depths of the being. It is thy will which directs, thy force which acts, and no longer in the limited field of a small individual consciousness but in the universal field of a consciousness which, in every state of being, is united with the whole. And the being has at once the conscious perception of all universal movements in their complexity and even their confusion, and the silent and perfect peace of thy sovereign immutability.